All right, guys, our guest tonight is WWE Hall of Famer, wrestling legend, and podcaster extraordinaire, Stone Cold Steve Austin. How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I just rolled in from Nashville, Tennessee yesterday promoting my new Broken Skull Challenge show on CMT. So, hell, I'm trying to recover from that. But other than that, things are going good. I can't complain about a damn thing.
Listen, we're very happy to have you on the show, man. We can't wait to get into it. So let's get right into the questions. You are one of the biggest names in wrestling history, but you're now making waves in the podcast industry. The Steve Austin Show on podcast, one that's podcast ONE. You have a long list of exciting guests so far, with big things coming as well. How have you found the transition from wrestling and movies to the podcast medium?
Well, it's interesting. Just asking people questions, carrying on conversation. You certainly finally develop a rhythm and a style. And, I learned early on, one of the mistakes I was making was trying to cram too much stuff in an interview. Like I'd talk to guys that have 20, 30, 40 years career and try to condense that into a 2-hour session. It just doesn't happen like that. So now I just kind of have some bullet points. We start talking and it just ends up being a conversation. I don't like to paint by numbers anymore. I just go by feel and try to take the conversation in different places, but just go with the flow. But it has been an interesting transition. I enjoy doing it. It allows me to use, some of the creative energy that I put into Monday Night Raw way back in the day. It gives me a way to maintain communication with my fan base and to just purely and simply entertain them. I don't talk about religion, politics, none of that bullshit. It's just audio whoop ass for the working man and the working woman to something to take their mind off the task at hand.
Mike, you all right?
You've already interviewed many of the biggest stars in wrestling on your podcast, but who's one person you haven't had on the show yet who kind of tops the list in terms of desired guests you'd like to have on the show?
Well, I'd like to talk to Hulk Hogan, of course, because, he's one of the biggest names in the history of the business, if he's not the biggest. So, obviously, I'd like to talk to Hulk Hogan. I'd like to talk to Superstar Billy Graham. I'd like to talk to Dusty Rhodes face-to-face in person. I got a chance to talk to him on the phone in the early stages. There's some of those people that I've already interviewed that, it's always different talking to someone on the phone rather than talking to them in person. Of course, I talked to, Bret the Hitman Hart and Shawn Michaels on the phone, but a one-on-one conversation is the best. I'm looking forward to, actually, I just connected with Kevin Von Erich the other day. We've been trying to get together for a long time, and I'm actually going to make a trip out to Hawaii. My wife's been trying to con me into going to Hawaii forever. That's one place that I have not been. So while we go to Hawaii to satisfy my wife's desire to go to Hawaii and lay on the beach, I'll be interviewing Kevin Von Erich. So he's a guy that I'm looking forward to talking to. Hopefully I'll get a chance to talk to him in the next few months. And I talked to Undertaker. I asked him if he wanted to do the show. He said he would. That's a matter of me getting out to Austin, Texas, and talking to him one-on-one because I don't want to talk to him on the phone.
Oh, that will be one hell of an interview. I can't wait for that. BG, you're up next.
It's Stone Cold. You're the host of Redneck Island, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is supposed to re-air this summer in the United Kingdom. In wake of the success of WWE's Legends House on WWE Network, have you ever thought about doing a version of Redneck Island with former or even current wrestlers?
Well, I haven't thought about it, but it's not for me to come up with ideas for their network. I haven't pitched them anything. I don't know what they're looking for. I know they just rolled out that network. I finally subscribed to it just the other day. So I definitely think there's room for something like that. But, it all depends on how far they want to go with it. I'd certainly be willing to engage in conversation about doing something like that. And I'm looking forward to Redneck Island finally getting over to the UK because I have so many listeners to my podcast over there in the UK. I'm very excited about them getting the show over there and seeing it. And I'm very surprised that Redneck Island hasn't gone to Canada because they have CMT Canada, and it's not even over there. So it's a great show, and I think they're going to enjoy it. And it's certainly a different cup of tea, so to speak, than what they're used to on their programs.
Listen, you mentioned the WWE Network. They're talking about bringing back Tough Enough, a new season of Tough Enough. For many fans, your presence on that show was the highlight of the program. Do you have any plans of going back on that show? Is that something they've contacted you with, and is that something you'd be open to?
Well, I'd certainly be open to it, but, I was just reading, I get my Google alerts, and just a while ago I read that they were bringing back Tough Enough, but then there were some delays in it, so certainly I'd be willing to consider doing something along the lines of Tough Enough. That was my first endeavor into reality television. That is the world that I know and love, and I think that's why, I was good on that show. I'm not going to sit there and blow smoke up my ass, but I love the business of pro wrestling. It's what I know better than anything else I know about. So, if I get a chance to do that show, if they open up talks and offer that spot to me, if we can make everything work, I'd love to do the show.
Okay, listen, you mentioned in the intro you're working on Steve Austin's Broken Skull Ranch Challenge on Country Music Television. Okay, I watched some of the previews of this, and this looks like some intense shit, Steve. I couldn't do this. I'm kind of a chunky guy. I couldn't see myself pull my fat ass up a hill. Talk to the fans about what they would be expecting watching a series like this.
Well, there's a thing about the Broken Skull Challenge, and there's really nothing else like it on television. I was talking some early interviews the other day, and I kind of brought up American Ninja Warrior, but that kind of plays more to a parkour type athlete and crossfitting as well. And those men and women that do American Ninja Warrior are badass in their own right. In their own right, no doubt about that. They're badass. But this is, and most times they're competing against a course. They've got to beat that course, but they're competing against a clock. At the Broken Skull Challenge, each week I bring 8 elite athletes to the ranch. We did 10 episodes, 5 episodes of guys, 5 episodes of gals. It's head-to-head competition, 3 rounds. If you win, you go to the next round. If you lose, you leave the ranch immediately. At the end of the day, we pare down from 8 to 1 individual. The next day, that individual will take on my personal obstacle course. It's a half-mile course, 10 badass obstacles that you must overcome. I named my course the Skull Buster because it's specifically designed to whoop a man's ass. You beat my course, I'll give you $10,000. If someone has already beaten my course, if you beat their time, then I'll give you $10,000, and you will be my returning champion. And until someone beats your time, you'll get that $10,000. Or if someone sends you stepping down the road, that's what it is. So it's nothing fancy. It's down. It's dirty, and you need strength, stamina, determination, willpower, a lot of heart and determination to beat my course and to win and succeed in the head-to-head competition. It's badass, and we had some hellacious athletes come out to the ranch. And on Redneck Island, a show which I love, there's a lot of drama and a lot of storylines going on because someone's always voted off the island. That's the process of elimination. Here, your fate is in your own hands. I set the stage for these athletes to come out here and put on the best performance of their life. If they're not good enough, you go home. Simple as that.
Now, here's a quick follow-up question. Have you tried your own course? Have you tackled it? How did you do on it?
I tackled it. I didn't tackle it full speed. I was dealing with some shoulder and some knee issues. But certainly, I've been through the course. I know how rugged it is. And once you see it, and once you watch a couple of these people attempt it and see how this course breaks down these individuals piece by piece, body part by body part, then all of a sudden it starts getting in their head and messing with their brain, and they start doubting themselves. To see the course in action, or just to see it in a wide shot is one thing, but to see all the elements start playing into effect and how it affects the men and the women, it's pretty badass.
Mike Chiart?
A lot of people were buzzing when on your podcast, Paul Heyman brought up the idea of a potential future match between yourself and Brock Lesnar. And I'm sure people ask you about this all the time, but it is the $1 million question. So have you 100% closed the door on having another match, or is it something that you might still consider if the right situation arose?
Sorry, guys, I got a dog barking in here. I just shut the damn thing up.
You know what? Still, Cole, this is pre-recorded, so you know what? I'll just have him. Yeah. Did you hear his question, or do you want him to repeat it?
Yeah, repeat the question.
Okay, just repeat the question. We'll cut in right here.
Sure. A lot of people were buzzing on your podcast when Paul Heyman came on and brought up the idea of a potential future match with Brock Lesnar. And, I'm sure a lot of people ask you about it, but it's the $1 million question. So have you 100% closed the door on having another match, or is that something that you would still consider if the perfect opportunity and situation were to arise?
I'd consider anything if the perfect situation opportunity arose, and it'd be more than $1 million question. So that's just the way it is. I don't want to sit here and promote a match. I don't want to sell a match. I don't want to talk about making a comeback because then the dirt sheets or whatever you want to call them. And I talk to Dave Meltzer and Wade Keller all the time. Nice guys, and I consider them friends. I see Dave every now and then at an MMA fight. But I don't want to stir any pots, sell anything, or hint or tease anything. So people get their panties in a wad and say, "Oh, Stone Cold either do it or not." So, anything could happen, but I'm not going to endorse, promote, sell, tease anything in regards to a match.
We had Goldberg on 2 weeks ago. He said the exact same thing. Now you yourself, you've accomplished damn near everything as a wrestler. Is there anything now, looking back at your storied career, that you maybe missed? Maybe a certain feud or a match that you wish you had done, looking back now?
Well, I wasn't in the right place mentally when they wanted to do Hogan. I just didn't think on paper, as far as would have drawn money, hell, drawn a shit ton of money. But at that point, I didn't figure the match was going to be what it could have been, had it happened sooner. But so that would have been one that would have been cool to have happened. I don't have any regrets about it not happening. I've moved on. The Goldberg match, which was a no-brainer. Bill decided to take the guaranteed money from Turner and wait it out, and then he jumped into the WWE window when, that didn't really work out. He didn't really peak out in WWE. Like he was in WCW, so that never really happened, but that would have been a great match. And I'm not running Bill down for taking that money. I'm just saying that's the way he played those cards, and I can appreciate that. And just as far as two big names right off the top, that would be two. Obviously a match with Brock would have been badass. CM Punk would have been badass. Well, John Cena would have been a badass. Cena, Jesus Christ, I think I could have got more out of Cena than anybody he's ever worked with. He needs to someone go out there and have a come to Jesus meeting with his ass, knock some of that vanilla off of him, and get his ass fired up and put him in the right direction. I got nothing but respect for that guy. He's doing a hell of a job. And the program with Steve Austin evolved him to another level, which he has not been yet. And he's a top guy, and he's going to go down in the Hall of Fame. So when I say that, I mean that in the most positive regard.
Mike, you all right?
Yourself, Hulk Hogan, and The Rock kicked off WrestleMania 30 in grand fashion in a segment that was just universally beloved by wrestling fans, myself included. And you've obviously had a lot of great WrestleMania matches and moments. But for you personally, how does that one stack up against the rest?
Well, it was fun. Hogan goes out there first and, botches the Superdome. And, he catches himself. So I go out there and say, it's great to be, back here in the Silverdome, go along with him, kind of ribbing him on the square. And, of course, Rock comes in and sets the course straight. But it was interesting. Y'all saw what you saw. You saw Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold, and The Rock go to the ring. What was sold to me was Hulk Hogan goes to the ring, then The Rock goes to the ring, then Stone Cold goes to the ring. So what I was sold and what actually happened were two different things. But to be that as it may, it turned out like it did. I had a hell of a lot more stuff that I wanted to say, and in regards to a promo off the cuff, and do some other shit out there. But they presented that on the day. I went with it because WrestleMania, if you're going to perform, the time needs to go to the guys and the gals that are going to work the matches in the ring, and so that they can all have time to tell their stories. So went along for the ride. And that's me nitpicking what was said to me and how it all played out. But I loved it. I got a lot of respect for Hulk Hogan. The Rock is a good friend of mine. I got a ton of respect for him. He's kicking ass. And when you get three cats like us in the ring, it was truly, truly a good time. And I think everybody there enjoyed it. I actually pitched to Vince in the back, but I wanted to sing Jambalaya, Hank Williams song. And he shot that down because he didn't think it'd get over. And I think there's some copyright issues or whatever. But can you imagine 70,000, 80,000 people singing Jambalaya? When you get through interviewing me, you'll listen to that song on YouTube. But it would have been badass. But what you should have heard was me singing Jambalaya to Vince in the dressing room with Triple H pacing back and forth getting ready for his match. It was pretty damn funny.
Amazing. PG, next.
Yeah, Stone Cold. Earlier you spoke about how you like to feature, the creativity that you used to show on Raw in your podcast. And WWE recently released their Best of Raw After the Show DVD. And as we all expected, you're featured heavily, and you quickly became the highlight of the DVD. And you were also the focal point for some of the most entertaining segments in wrestling history. I'm just curious to know if you had more fun during your career when you were in the ring wrestling, or when you were cutting promos and interacting with other wrestlers and the fans outside of the ring or outside of your match?
Well, the stuff that happens in the ring, man, that's what you're there for. That's what brought the people to the building, and that's what you take pride in is the stories and the work that you put in the ring. and being able to take those people on a ride, with your opponent, whether you're working heel or babyface. That's the bottom line. When I got a chance to turn heel and we started fucking with the people, when the lights went down, the cameras seemingly stopped rolling, and we were off the air anyway. That was when you could, kind of, not really break kayfabe, but certainly expand your character or break your character and do all kinds of stupid shit. And, man, from rolling down that ramp in them office chairs to singing and telling jokes and fucking with the crowd, it was an absolute blast. So the most fun is, bottom line, in a match, in the ring, when the shit's on and you got to deliver. The shenanigans and all the ha-ha stuff was obviously very enjoyable, but it all starts and stops with what happens in the ring on the air.
BG, another one?
Yeah, earlier you mentioned CM Punk, and he's obviously been a hot topic this year, and you haven't been shy in weighing in on his absence from WWE. If he were to make a return to WWE, how would you bring him back?
Man, I don't know, and I hadn't made too much of it. I predicted he would make a comeback at WrestleMania 30. Obviously, that didn't happen, and so he left the company, and so whenever he comes back, if he comes back, that's totally up to him. I don't know how I'd bring him back. I just know from when I got out of the business, I don't know what I was going, 6, 8, 10 months. I can't remember. I lost a shitload of money, and I just believe that if you've got some miles left in the tank, you make that money while you can. Don't leave it on the table, because he'll never make that money back. And at the end of the day, you can say, "Oh, it ain't about the money." Well, it is about the money, because you need to make as much of it as you can before you don't make that money anymore. So I don't know how you bring him back. Certainly, I think the fans are welcoming him back. He was doing a great job before he left. If he gets his head in the right space, or if he ever wants to come back, then I assume he will. But as far as me playing Mr. Booker, don't have a clue.
Well, listen, a lot of people attack CM Punk for just walking out. As somebody who kind of went through the same kind of similar experience earlier on in your career, well, actually not earlier in your career, in the early 2000s, how do you feel about CM Punk just walking out? Is it a factor of the stress that he endured, or could there be something deeper?
Well, no, I mean, I totally get it. Just if it's strictly burnout or not being thrilled with the storylines, I totally get it and understand it. And you get to a point where, it doesn't make a fuck about the money. And I didn't give a shit. But that's me speaking now. Back then, I didn't give a flying fuck. I was willing to forego the money because I truly didn't care. I was fed up. But now when I look back with, hindsight being 20/20, and I realized how much money left on the table and how many business deals dropped off the table because of that, it was the dumbest mistake of my life. So I can understand if it's purely burnout or frustration, I get it. If it's anything else, if it's a health issue I don't know about, then obviously I don't know about that, so I don't want to speculate. But, it is what it is. And so finally, if he feels like coming back, he will.
Mike Yart?
You were always viewed as a hugely talented performer throughout your career, but obviously you reached unimaginable levels of success when you developed the Stone Cold character. So I was wondering if you see anyone on the current WWE roster who may not be a featured part of the show right now, but maybe has the potential to become that next top star and maybe take a path that was similar to the one that you took in WWF.
Man, I think it could be any one of a handful of people, and I can't just sit there and just throw out names right off the top of my head because I haven't paid that much attention to the roster. I've been trying to DVR the shows. I'm several months behind. I just subscribed to the WWE Network. I watched the pay-per-view. I've watched half of the pay-per-view so far. Just from guys that are on the radar right now. Obviously, I think all the guys from the Shield have got futures ahead of them. And I don't think they're all carved in stone yet. There's still some missing pieces within each individual part of that Shield. Antonio Cesaro still has a hole somewhere in his game, but the work is certainly there. I predict a lot of success from that guy. Certainly Bray Wyatt's starting to kick ass and do a lot of great things. When they put Cesaro with Heyman, that was an interesting move because people were starting to get off on Cesaro, and so they put him with Heyman, which made him go back heel. And the rest of the roster, I don't know enough about. But here's one thing that I will offer up. I remember watching someone sent me one of my early matches from Dallas a few weeks ago on my email, And I was watching that back, and I see, an athletic body and a guy with some potential, but just the look was just not that great. So there's so many guys down there that as they go through the process and they're not afraid to embrace making some changes, making some modifications to their gear, to their look, to keep experimenting, to find the right gimmick, the look, the whole package, to bring it together. Man, there's probably 2 or 3 diamonds in the rough right now that we're not even looking at because they're not close to the appearance that it's going to take to be the final thing or the ultimate thing that helps them actually get over and be received by the crowd in a heel or babyface fashion.
Yeah, that's all our questions, Steve. We listen. It's huge thanks to our guest tonight, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Tell the fans where they can continue supporting you, man.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I do a podcast. It's called The Steve Austin Show. I drop a family-friendly show on Tuesday. I do an explicit content show called Steve Austin Show Unleashed on podcast1.com and iTunes. You download them for free. They cost you nothing. And, I talk about, I interview people from the world of professional wrestling every now and then, an actor or a singer or something like that. Or half the time, it's me answering questions off of my show email, questions@steveaustonshow.com. And it ain't rocket scientist. I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist. It's not rocket science. It's purely bullshit entertainment. So that's pretty much all I got to sell right now and say the Broken Skull Challenge, my new reality show on CMT, Country Music Television. Season premiere is July 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's badass. It's going to be a badass show, so I suggest everybody check it out.
Listen, Steve, that's some great stuff. Thank you for coming on the show. I didn't even crack a beer during this interview because I was so excited to talk to you. And I'm going to crack a beer now for you for the end of the show, man. We appreciate your time, dude.
You guys, y'all take care.